What's up guys, KS here. Thanks for joining me today as always. Not long ago, I reviewed the Rock Island Armory TAC Ultra FS 22 TCM 9mm combo and had a blast, pun intended. The gun was a soft shooter in 9mm and a fireball throwing explosion making machine in 22 TCM. Around the $700 to $800 mark, it's tough to beat in the 1911 category. Even though that gun was awesome, there was another offering in the RIA catalog that was calling my name, the TAC Ultra FS HC. Many competitors and shooters in general prefer having the feel and trigger of a 1911, but want the advantage of double-stack magazines that their polymer and double-action single-action counterparts run with. Enter the 2011. The 2011 is a modernized 1911, taking advantage of those same great full-capacity magazines many of us have come to know and love. Let's face it, more is better, right? Although there are several choices out there for 2011s, many are from high-end custom shops, and the final price tag can be heart attack-inducing. Thankfully, Rock Island Armory has found solid ground, offering their catalog of guns at reasonable prices. Let's jump in and take a look at the TAC Ultra FS HC to find out if the affordable 2011 stacks up. Alright, let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at this. And before we start, I want to give a quick shout out to Rock Island Armory. They did send this along for me to review and give my thoughts to you guys. Of course, I get no kickbacks or anything for doing this. It's just an opportunity to experience a fun gun and provide my thoughts, of course. And Arms Corps also sent a little bit of ammo along to have some fun with as well, so a quick shout out to them as well. So in terms of specs, the overall length is 7.13 inches. The height is 5.5 inches. The barrel length is 5 inches. It's just like a standard government model, of course. And the width is going to be 1.3 inches. Now the weight unloaded is 43.2 ounces. And in terms of magazines, as I said before, it's a 2011, so the magazines are 17 round capacity. This did come with 2 as a tester. I believe you get 2 with this one, which is great. Now I've heard that some people can get 18 rounds out of this magazine. Admittedly, even though I did run 17 rounds a few times off camera on this, I've taken it to the range a couple of times now. I actually didn't test out 18. I found that out after the fact, so that was a little bit of a miss on my part. So if you guys know something about that, be sure to holler down in the comments below. I always appreciate that. And in terms of the slide and the frame, these are both going to be Parkerized, and they are definitely a matte finish. And as I've said before, I love matte finishes. I think they look great. They're just a little bit easier to grab onto, and they're kind of low fuss, low muss, not a lot of glare to them or anything like that. And I think it just looks fantastic. I think it's a good looking gun. It's a very tactical looking gun, which is pretty cool. So I think they did a great job with that, of course. And then the action on this is single action only, just like any other 1911. So this would be carried cocked and locked if it was a carry type gun, although this really would be quite a tank to carry, but certainly for competition or range use or anything like that, cocked and locked unless you're ready to shoot. And it does have the safety on both sides, of course, and it's a pretty good shelf right there as well. See if I can get this in the light somehow, if the cameras will. There we go. Play nice with me for a moment or two. And the safety is articulate. It's really nice, just like the other gun that I tested. So I like that. It provides a nice little ledge while shooting. That's kind of how I run 1911s. I'll put my thumb right there, and that way I can actuate the safety when I want, and then it just kind of rests right there. It gives a little bit of a stable platform, which is very comfortable for me. So it seems to work pretty well. And that's pretty much it for the specs of the Rock Island Armory TAC Ultra FS HC. Now that's a mouthful. As for features, there is a lot going on with the TAC Ultra right here. Now let's jump in with the grips. And right off the bat, we've got some very nice G10 panels right here with a variety of different textures on them. And I found them to be pretty bitey. Now they're not as bitey as some out there on the market, but given the size of this grip, and I'm going to do a comparison here in a moment, they definitely did the job. Now, the mainspring housing or backstrap right here also has some really nice checkering on it. That aids in keeping that gun really well planted. And then the front has some just vertical lines on it, and you know, a lot of 1911s don't have anything, so the fact that they milled in some lines right here is really nice. Now, I said I was going to do a comparison here real quick, so before we get into any more features, I just kind of want to give you an appreciation for how big this is, especially in the grip. Now, I've got another 1911 right here, and it's a 1911 rather than a 2011, so just hopefully you guys can kind of get a sense or a feel for how different it is. Of course, the regular 1911 is going to be a single stack, and that's where this 2011 1911 really shines, giving you full capacity, of course. Now we also do have a magwell right here, and that does aid in seating those magazines. And I'll tell you, man, they just go right in. They did a really good job of beveling everything very nicely. It's a very smooth transition. I like that quite a bit. I think it's kind of a cool look, especially on a 1911 or 2011 kind of platform. It's just a little bit different. Now, as we move up the frame, of course, we do have our grip safety right here and a memory bump as well, just like with any other 1911, that is to be expected. And then we move up and it's got a really nice beaver tail on it, just allowing you to get a really high grip on it. I like that as well. Now we do have our magazine button right here. There we go. The camera's going to play nice for a moment or two. Just a standard magazine release, nothing entirely too special. And I've already mentioned the thumb safety on here as well. And then, of course, we do have our slide lock. Of course, I do have to unlock that. And of course, it does exactly what it needs to do. And that also is going to serve as your takedown lever. Now, you guys know I can't stand taking down 1911s. They're very futzy, especially with the camera sitting right here in between us. So I'm not going to do that. It might be something that I do at a later time. But of course, there are a million videos out there on disassembling a 1911. So I feel like that subject is pretty well covered. But just know that the takedown is exactly the same as other 1911s. And the maintenance is extremely easy. You just have to make sure that you keep this type of gun pretty well oiled, and then you're good to go. Now, of course, with the TAC Ultra series, we are going to have our accessory rail for tiny ninjas, lasers, chainsaws, all that kind of good stuff, and it's a pretty good size rail as well. So they've made this to basically serve pretty much every purpose you can think of, especially in terms of competition or range use or even home defense, something like that. I mean, this will be a heck of a home defense gun for sure. Now, we'll get into sights and all that here in just a moment. But in terms of the frame, in terms of the controls and all of that, I think they've done a great job with all the features. In terms of the slide, we've got several things going on here. As you'll notice right off the bat, we do have front serrations on it. And I have to say, I love 1911s with front serrations. I know it's not traditional, I know that, but I just think there's something really kind of cool about them. And then, of course, we've got our rear serrations as well. And we've got the Rock Island Armory logo on it. And, normally I don't like a lot of banners and logos and that sort of thing on firearms, but this logo actually is really tasteful. It looks good. I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me a bit. It's not plastered all over the place or anything like that. And the rest of the slide is pretty barren of anything. So I think it's very tasteful. It's very classy looking, which is pretty important to me. Now, in terms of sights, we do have our rear sights here. These are a white dot adjustable setup. You can actually adjust them for windage and elevation, which is pretty cool. They're not serrated or anything like that, but I found them to do just fine at the range. And thankfully, I didn't have to do any adjusting at all. Now, as far as the front sight, it is fiber optic. Now, just like the last gun, I actually cut out the old red fiber optic. It was getting pretty nasty, and it was time for something fresh, so I went with green. I always do. I just prefer that. It's easier to pick up on the range. So you're welcome to the next person who gets this. Hopefully you'll appreciate that. But the slide is great. I mean, it does exactly what it needs to do. I found that the shooting was very easy in terms of getting that sight on target and pretty quickly as well. The shooting experience with the TAC Ultra was a lot of fun. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Taking a 9mm and putting it through a 1911 or a 2011 like this is just fantastic because you're putting those rounds through a pretty heavy gun, and not only a heavy gun, but in this case, kind of a wide gun as well. I mean, that grip is fairly enormous. Now, that was the one thing that I noticed while I was shooting this. It takes a little while to adjust to a bigger grip like this. Now, I know there's some other guns out there that have pretty large grips for sure, but when we're talking about something that really is, at least I had in my head, a 1911, it took some time. And also coming from shooting guns like, Glock 19s and FN 509s and things like that, it took some time to get used to. But once I did, and it was about maybe a box of ammo, after that, I was off and running, and this thing was fantastic. I mean, it really was a very soft shooter. It absorbs almost all of the recoil. It was very easy to get the sights back on target and keep shooting, and that is one of the great advantages of a gun like this. Now, of course, we'll jump into the trigger here in just a moment or two, but that coupled with the grips and everything else, it just made for a delightful shooting experience. All right, let's jump in and take a look at the trigger for just a moment or two. Again, it is unloaded. Now, as I said before, this is single action only, so you're going to only have one type of pull. And I measured this trigger at just over 4 pounds, so it's a pretty light trigger. Now, you'll also notice it is adjustable for over travel, which is fantastic. So with this right here, our take up, and there is just a little bit, although it's incredibly clean. And then you get to a nice wall, and there's your break, and it's very light, it's very crisp. I like the feel of this. Now, I know you can tune 1911s, and there are a lot of custom options that have crazy light triggers and everything, but if you think about a gun in this price range at around $700 to $800 or something like that, a trigger like this out of the box is really delightful. Now, here's your reset right there, and we're back out to the start. And of course, I will do this again. We've got our take up, very clean, there's not a lot there, and our wall, and here's our break. Right there, again, it's light and crisp, and it's a very predictable trigger. And then our reset right there, and we're back out to the start. I mean, out of the box, this is a fantastic 1911 trigger. Again, I acknowledge there are certainly very custom, very highly tweaked triggers, and you can do that with this as well. But just pulling it out of the box and going to the range, you're going to be very happy with this type of trigger. So what do I think of the Rock Island Armory TAC Ultra FS HC overall? Well, guys, overall, I think it's a fantastic gun. Now, considering the price, coming in somewhere between $700 and $800 street price, it's an incredible value because you're getting all of the features that you need. You're getting great grips, you're getting the mag well, you're getting good sights, a fantastic trigger out of the box, and just an overall quality build. I think it's well worth the money, especially if you're curious about 2011s. Now, again, one thing to keep in mind, depending on your hand size, it may be more or less comfortable for you, so it might be good to test one out if you have the opportunity. But if it fits, I'm telling you, this is definitely a way to go, and it's a very high recommendation on my list for you guys. Now, again, Rock Island sent this to me, but guys, I get to say whatever I want to say. It's something I take pride in, being an honest reviewer, of course, and Rock Island knows that as well, but thankfully they put out a fantastic product, so it makes it a lot easier on somebody like me. So, guys, be sure to sound off down below. Tell me about your experiences with 2011s. What have you tried? What do you like? Have you tried the Rock Island? If not, are you curious about it? If you've got any other questions from me about my experience, be sure to leave those comments down below as well. I love engaging in conversations with you guys, as you know. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.